The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. You're giving veterans a voice today. Powered by WorkSimple, where we simplify your mission.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Lock in every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Tracer Rounds targeting veteran resources.
You wonder why life feels like chaos, like tracer rounds flying all around you? That's why I created the Tracer Rounds podcast. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, I help cut through the noise and point veterans to those resources they need. Since 2023, join me.
To hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And we're back on the Tracer Rounds podcast, and we're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is to Scott Hyder, and he is with he's the founder of Hidden Battles Foundation. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me, Terry. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that you reached out, and I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. And I know that you're an Army veteran. Can you tell us a little bit about your service?
Yeah, so I did 10 years between active and reserves. I started off at infantry, and then I became a combat engineer. And I did a bunch of humanitarian missions. So when I went in 1991, and I got out in 2002. And so at that time, global war and terror didn't start. So we were doing a lot of humanitarian missions. I did humanitarian missions in Panama and in Kenya. I also was deployed to the Balkans during the Balkan peace conflict. So K4, that was in 2000. So I am a veteran of foreign wars, which I don't know how that works, because it wasn't a war for us. It was more of a, peacekeeping mission. So,
but I mean, it's still classified the same. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just I can relate to a lot of stuff with the global war and terror guys, and then there's stuff I can't relate. It's just one of those things. But we're all veterans, and we all speak the same language, and we enjoy the same culture. So there's that bond right there.
Definitely. So why did you decide to join, and why the Army?
So I joined because I grew up in a veterans projects in Boston, and listening to the Vietnam veterans, they would sit there and they weren't talking war stories. They were talking camaraderie. They talked about their service. And, I say that we live vicariously through the 10% of the great stories and great experiences we had in the military, where like 90% not so great, or even could be great. But, we live through those where we joke around a lot about the miserable times we had, or we laugh about the shenanigans that we did, or the misfit stuff that we did. So hearing the stories from the Vietnam vets about, the great stories and brotherhood that they experienced. And then my father was a mental health clinician for the VA for 36 years. So I grew up going to the VA hospital and seeing World War II and Korean War and Vietnam vets. And, just they were superheroes to me, seeing these guys. So I always looked up to them. So then when I turned 17, my parents signed so I could become a split op. And I was going to go into the National Guard as an infantryman. And I got poison ivy so bad that they actually sent me home from basic training. Oh, so I got a general discharge. Yeah. And then it took me forever to get that general lifted, because it said general and then it said health or medical. So I had to go get medical screens and sign waivers and everything else, because of the fact that I was just covered head to toe in poison ivy. So when I went back in, I went in as a reservist, but I was, like I said, I had done so many humanitarian missions. I would go on, deployments for months at a time. And then eventually, after 10 years in the Balkans, I had sustained a neck injury that ended my military career. So, yeah, so I got out.
So how did it shape how you see community and how you see service to others?
Well, it was amazing because of the fact that I grew up very poor. Like I said, I grew up in the projects. But when I was going to other places like Kenya and I was working on, as a combat engineer, we built schools and we were fixing churches and we were trying to bring water and electricity to certain villages. And to see how people lived with absolutely nothing, where I thought I had nothing, it was very humbling to me. And it made me appreciate a lot of the things that I did have, because there are third world countries where they think just because you're an American, you're rich. And quite honestly, compared to them, you are, but they live very humble. They live very simple because they don't know any different. And they're not complaining about the Wi-Fi being down, or they're not complaining about not having the newest Jordans. Like, you're dealing and you're walking around with kids that literally have flip-flops made of tire treads and rope, So that was humbling to me. And it made me appreciate a lot of the stuff that I had here in America. So when I did get out, I wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to, show people that we should be proud of where we are and we should be proud of what we have. So I became a police officer, and I spent 19 years as a police officer.
Wow.
So, and then I ended up retiring, and it changed my perspective on so much things, because I love helping people, even when, like in the military, when you start to lose faith in humanity, right? Like if you're on deployment or you just like have not had enough of people, something will always reel you back into humility. So like say for instance, you're in war-torn Afghanistan or Syria or whatever, and you've had enough of the locals. And then you see that smile from that little kid who's waving and just wants, to give you the thumbs up or something. And it brings you back, it's that mental reset, I think. So that's what it was with me being a police officer. I would deal with somebody who was screaming at me because I was giving them a ticket, or next thing I know, I see an old lady waving at me in traffic. So I was like, all right, this is great. And I wanted to give back, and I wanted to show my appreciation for being, a resident of the greatest country on the planet. So I just wanted to give back. And when I became a police officer, I was heavily involved in community policing. I used to do bike rodeos, and I would do helmet checks and write grants to get car seats and get helmets for kids, because I just thought that we should invest in our future and, build that relationship between police and, the residents. And the same thing with the military. You want to try to build those relationships, because you don't want to be, a perception of who you are and what you are, I mean, people saw that in Vietnam. Then we're coming home, they're calling baby killers, and they weren't welcoming home. And that didn't happen, thank God, to the global war on terror, thanks to the Vietnam vets. So, when they come home, my organization, we have so many different activities that we're trying to show them that it is, it's good to come home. It's good to be here and to have that positive, little sub community of veterans and first responders to join into, because we understand you. You're not on Lonely Island. And we find that with a lot of veterans who are, guardsmen or national reservists, where they've been deployed so many times during the global war on terror, that when you have a 19, 20-year-old kid who comes home from his deployment, he has nothing in common with any other 19 or 20-year-old that he's been friends with. So
That's true.
we're there to pick up the slack when he's between drill weekends. He does, so I don't know if I answered the question, but I went on a good rant there.
No, you did answer my question. A service to others. I think a lot of our military in general have that mindset. I mean, there may be some that's not their focus, but by and large, I would say people that want to serve and want to serve others. And like you said, sometimes you get tired and you're like, man, what am I here for? Nothing seems to be going the way it should. And you're kind of mentally exhausted. And then someone gives you that little, like you said, wave or smile. And then you're like, okay, I can do it. It's all right.
Absolutely.
And it resets that, like you said, the mental state into that service attitude. So I think you really did answer it.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of the reason that we join, let's face it, there are people who join the military to get a better life. I mean, they may be in poverty. They might just, their home life is not the best. And it is an opportunity for them to get away. But in a sense, when you get in there and you become part of that military fraternity, you start to put others before yourself. So you start to care about the people that are around you. And that's realistically becomes the mission now. The mission is to, protect your brothers and sisters in arms, the foxhole mentality. And I think when you get out of the military, you start to lose that. Like, where is that now for a lot of people? For some people, they transition very well. They get out, they go into, they find a job that they're really good at, and they find, peace in that. But there are a lot that don't. They get out and they're kind of on Lonely Island. They're surrounded by people who really don't get, their humor. Like, we have really dark humor and that gallows humor. But our mannerisms are different. Our habits are different. Ethics are totally different. Where, if we don't know the job, we will learn the job and we become very proficient in the job. So it's hard, but to get that humility back and to find that center of why are you here? It's your task and purpose. Like, I'm here to be better for everybody by being a better me. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. What are you here for, in a sense? It's, let's make a better impact and let's find what your mission is. So it's another rant. Sorry.
True. A lot of people don't really understand or don't really find their purpose, and maybe until later in life, and they're like, oh yeah, this is what I was meant to do. I wish I would have known it sooner. Because they struggle trying to find where they fit in, especially after they leave service or they leave public service, for that matter. They're so used to giving and they're so used to being in that environment, and then when they leave and retire, or maybe they have to medically retire for some reason, they kind of lose their focus there too, or their sense of purpose. It's like, well, what am I here for? I did this job and this is what I know, and now what do I do?
Yeah.
So
reinventing yourself. Yeah, reinventing yourself is it's a challenge. And there's a huge post-retirement suicide rate when it comes to first responders, because it's their identity. I mean, realistically, there's only a couple professions that you're introduced to as when you go to a cookout: doctor, police officer, or a veteran. And we get that. Like, it's like, oh, you go to a thing and it's like, oh, here's Scott. Oh my God, he just got back from deployment. Like, nobody ever says like, oh, here's Frank, he's an accountant. Like, nobody does that. Right. And when they do something like that, it could be something where it's a little on edge. But I know, like, and I pick on firefighters because I have a lot of friends of them, but how do you tell a firefighter is in a room? He'll tell you. We're a police officer. We make up reasons, and I will tell you, for years, I told people I was a penguin trainer because I didn't want to hear cop stories. And I literally, because my daughter, I used to go to the aquarium all the time with her. I would take pictures of penguins. And when people are like, you're not a penguin trainer, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't. I flip through my photos and I'm like, oh, look, yeah, this is like P37 and what? He's on rehab. He's coming home. I would make up these stories because I didn't want to hear the cop stories. I didn't want to hear how you got a ticket for speeding and the cop was mean to you. Like, I just didn't want to hear it anymore. So, when you get somebody who comes home, maybe they don't want to be recognized as, sometimes thank you for your services. It's awkward for veterans. It's like, all right, it's just I did my thing, and they don't realize, because we don't put ourselves on a pedestal and say I'm the greatest person that ever lives, unless you're a Navy SEAL.
Right.
But you'll sit there and it might be a little awkward. But when you're in the company of us, we're just going to give you crap. Like, it's just like, motor pool, or it's, cleaning your weapons, or it's just us, trying to feel like we belong again. And like I said, some people transition very well, but some people miss that. They miss that camaraderie. But like you said, what am I here for? And some people, when they become dads, they're like, this is the reason I'm on the planet, because I want to be a dad, or I wanted to be a mom. That was the reason. And they find that. But when task and purpose is missing, yeah, it's hard for people,
It definitely is. I had a chief tell me, fire chief, by the way, tell me that, he goes, make sure you make friends outside of the profession, so that when you're out of the profession, that's not all that you have to associate with. You need to find friends that don't know anything about the fire service or know anything about this thing or that thing. So that way you have a diverse experience and you can relate on another level besides just having, your fire clique or your police officer clique or your veterans clique. You just need to be able to, communicate with others and understand how they work and understand something else besides the job. And so I thought that was really great advice.
Yeah, you definitely need a disconnect. I wasn't, and it wasn't because I wasn't liked. I didn't really have too many friends. I was friendly with everybody like that. I didn't really hang around with too many people outside of work that I worked with. And it wasn't because I didn't like them. It's because of the fact that I've always separated the two. Just because when I left work, I left work. I wanted to be home. I never wore my uniform home. I wasn't that guy that, was like constantly wearing a thin blue line sticker or anything on my car. Like I wasn't that guy. And it wasn't that I wasn't proud of what I did. I just, I liked the disconnect of it. I mean, I loved helping people and I always went above and beyond for those who I served. But when I was off work, I was off work as best as I possibly could. I learned that if I saw something that was criminal, I became a really good witness. I was not the police officer. Like I'm like, oh, this is what I saw, 100%. This is everything. And even to this day, like I am not Scott the cop. I am Scott the retired guy. I'm the founder of Hidden Battles, and that's what I introduced myself with. But I just always made myself a really good witness. I was not, you know, I wasn't drawing down at somebody driving like an idiot in traffic. Like I was like, oh no, this is what I saw, and good luck to you. But there are those guys and girls that live and bleed and for the thin red line or the thin blue line. But there's got to be a disconnect, and that's what your mental health is going to tell you, because realistically, statistically wise, the normal person goes through about 4 to 5 traumatic events in their life, like the normal person. And it's usually a family death. So you're going to see your parents die, maybe loss of a child or a spouse, or whatever. But first responders and veterans, we go through so many traumatic events that the normal body's not supposed to be able to handle that. So when you think about how many in fire service or police, think about for the audience, think about the traumatic things you've seen. And half of the time you don't even remember until something triggers it or somebody's talking about it. Like, hey, remember that time we went to that call? And you're like, oh man, I completely forgot about that. Something that nobody ever would forget about. When I first started, I was on late nights and I went to a triple fatal on a highway that I completely forgot about until I was driving through it the other day, 23 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I completely forgot about that. And no normal person does that.
Yeah.
So you need to disconnect from that. And when you don't disconnect and you don't process it, it brings on a lot of problems later on.
That's true. And I was talking with another retired first responder, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, we're always on edge because we never know what's next. I always feel like I have to be on and I can't take it off. Like if I'm in a restaurant or somewhere, I'm looking at exits, I'm looking at people and just kind of people watching, just making sure everything's fine. It's not that I'm on the job, but my body tells me I'm on the job, so I'm on alert. So your high state of alert really kind of wears on you after some time because you're always waiting for the next thing, because he was saying you go from one call that's a speeding ticket to a call that's a shooting to a call that's maybe somebody in a medical distress or, a mass casualty event of some kind. And so you never know what you're going to get in an evening. It could be all those things. So that, like you said, it's a bunch of traumatic events all strung together in the matter of maybe an 8-hour shift.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because think about it. I mean, you have a fear of being ready, right? So when you're in the firehouse and you're washing the vehicle and you're waiting for the next call to come in, you really don't know what it's going to be. And the same thing with being in a cruiser. You're literally, and it's not even, you go to dispatchers too, ER nurses. Like there's a lot of people who experience this trauma where, we're always on edge because of the fact that we want our bodies to be ready. We're in idle mode in a sense, like the engine's running and we're just waiting to push that gas and go and do what we need to do. But you have to find when you can turn the key off and sit in the garage and relax. And a lot of people find different things to do that, whether it's running or going to the gym or yoga or journaling or listening to music or reading a book. That is your disconnect. And a lot of people I can't do it. It's very easy to do because when you're out running, mind's not thinking about, is there going to be a car crash in front of me? You're not thinking of that. You're thinking about what's my distance? What song am I listening to? The left, right process of your feet hitting the ground, which is like EMDR in a sense. So that should be a disconnect. You should have hobbies. You should have something that draws your attention away from that hypervigilance, which is funny because battle mindset, it's called. And it's great when you're at work and it's great when you're in theater, but when you come home, it's not good anymore.
No,
And that's
you're right.
and where do we process it and how do we process? How do we shut it off? And that's a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. For those that are in that world day to day, it is hard to figure out how you turn it off and then associate with your family and friends and be somebody different out of the uniform. So you're certified in question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention, and critical incident stress management. So how did you transition to that? Is it because of military service? Is it because of police service? Or how did you find yourself in those certifications and in those roles?
So you completely rebooted when we were talking. I only caught the end of that question.
Sorry
That's all
about
right.
that.
So what was the full question? Sorry.
So I know you're certified in question, persuade, and refer.
Yes.
Suicide prevention, and then
Mhm.
critical incident stress management. How did those certifications come about? What roles did you serve in to have those credentials, and how are you
So
using them?
so this is kind of a long-winded one. If you haven't noticed already, I like to talk. But there's backstories to everything, right? So what influenced me to do what I'm doing? So um, through a string of traumatic events to myself. One of them was the loss of a coworker who had taken his life, and then 2 years later, my brother had taken his life. Then I was the first on scene to two homicide suicides. One I was directly related to because the individual tried suing me civilly over a motorcycle crash and didn't win. So at the end of the week, he had marital problems and he ended up shooting his wife. And I was the second person through the door on that call. 2 weeks later, a 911 hang up had happened. And I went through the door and discovered the murder of a 16-year-old and the suicide of the dad. And he had shot the mom, but we ended up saving the mom. So a whole string of things had happened to me. And I was suffering, but I didn't realize that I was just on edge. I was a miserable person, trying to keep it clean for you.
Thank you.
And what happened was when I had retired, and so I had been in a cruiser crash that had ruined my career because I had suffered a spine injury that limited my left hand for mobility. And I was unable to qualify with my weapon. So I actually medically retired out. So when that had happened to me, I had literally been someone who was very active in my department, who I was constantly called off duty to ask me questions because I was a traffic officer and I specialized in commercial motor vehicle. And I was on multiple task force. So I would constantly get calls throughout the days and stuff from my fellow officers asking me questions like, what can I do with this truck or whatever, to being completely on Lonely Island. When I went out on injury, nobody called and checked on me. After the first week, nobody cared. And I went from, today a hero, tomorrow zero. And that really started to become traumatic for me because there I am, now my mental health it's caving in on me. And I decided to figure out what was going to work for me. Now, with a neck injury and had some surgeries and stuff, I started putting on weight. And one of my friends who was in the Army is very fit, owned a gym down in Baltimore, called me up and he said, I'm not going to quote him, but he said I looked like a bag of stuff. And told me I had to do something about it. And it was the tough love I needed. Yeah. So I said, well, I got a broken neck. What am I going to do? He's like, your legs work? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, stop walking. So I was like, all right. So at the time I had a son and I threw him in my rucksack, my Army rucksack, and I started walking with him. And my son was, a toddler. So I would put them in my rucksack and I would go for 5 miles. I would walk the river loop around my house, and I started to feel better. So my wife noticed that I started feeling better, and she started saying, like you're feeling better, you look better, you're being more productive. And I was like, yeah, it's working for me. So I put out on social media. Now, this is what I want people to pay attention to. So back in 2017, when this happened, unfit for duty was a real big thing for first responders. And I was afraid to put out, because I didn't know if I was retiring. At that point, I didn't retire for another 2 years. I thought, in every fiber of my being, I thought I was going back to work. And I did not want to put out anywhere that I was struggling. So what I did is I went on veterans pages on Facebook, and I said, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going through. And I'm finding that rucking is helping me. Join me if you're in the same boat. So after 6 weeks, I had about 20 veterans showing up at rucksacks, meet me at this nice park across the street from an ice cream place. And we would meet and we would sit and we would do like a 5K ruck. Then we'd come back and we'd sit for hours just talking about nothing. We'd talk about movie quotes, music. We'd tell stories about the funniest things that happened to us in the military. And I was feeling better. And my wife had said to me, she goes, you wanted to do something for your brother, because like I said, my brother was a retired corrections officer who had taken his life. And I said, yeah. She goes, let's start the scholarship for him. So being somebody who worked a lot of different shifts, I don't sleep well at night because I've trained myself to stay up. Because when I was a commercial motor vehicle guy, I would stay up and I would work from 7 at night to 3 in the morning, because I would do the paving trucks. I would do like long haul road trucks and stuff. So not sleeping well at night. One night I was reflecting on my brother, and I was thinking, like, what could I have done? I've missed the signs. Like, I had intervened twice with him, but I needed to find out more. I wanted to get more and educate myself more so that I could help people not go through the pain I went through. So I was sitting there one night and I said, my brother was fighting some hidden battles that nobody saw. And I was like, that's it. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to start a foundation in his name, and I'm going to carry on his honor, and I'm going to make it so nobody, or try to deter a lot of people from, going through what I'm going through. So we started doing that, and we just started doing rucking, and then we started building off it. But I constantly would meet people who said the same thing, like, how could I miss this? So that actually got me into the world of suicide prevention. It wasn't just me trying to create a community for like-minded people to be involved anymore. I wanted to make it so that when I talked to somebody, I could give them signs and symptoms. I could tell them, these are the ways you should ask. This is the way you should have a conversation. And I would like to guide them. And I'm not a clinician. I'm just a guy who is just me. I'm a guy who just is like every other guy, hopefully, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. I'm just a person that can talk to people. And I wanted to do that. I wanted just to give people layman's terms, easy conversation on how to talk to people and just get the information out of them and make it so that when you do ask those questions, you're not horrified. You can actually you can go now and encourage them to get help. And that's what QPR is: the question, persuade, and refer. So when I found that program, I'm like, this is perfect. This is what we need. And I got certified so I could start teaching those classes. Because as first responders and veterans, we think that we can talk to anybody. And some people can. Some people can sell, a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. Some people can't talk to anybody. True. And it's just simple dialogue. And then a lot of people are afraid to ask the tough question because they don't know what to do with it. Because if you ask somebody, plain and simple, you should be asking them, are you thinking of killing yourself? Because if you say, are you thinking of harming yourself? That could be somebody who's a cutter, Right. But you need to just ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself? And at that time, if they say yes, you should be prepared for the next step. And a lot of people are afraid of that yes, so they won't ask.
Well, some people, I went to a class too on suicide prevention that the Army was putting on in the unit I was in, and one of the questions, or one of the fallacies, I guess, or the myths they were trying to debunk is, if you ask somebody if they're going to commit suicide, it's not going to make them do it. If they were going to do it, they already were. It has nothing to do with your question.
Yeah.
So just putting, because people think that I'm putting that in their head. If I
No.
say,
Yeah.
are you thinking of committing suicide? Or you think of, harming yourself or killing yourself or any of that?
Mm-hmm.
They think, oh, well, I'm gonna put that idea in their head. I better not
Yeah.
ask. But truly, if they were already thinking that way, they're going to
Exactly.
answer with yes or no, but you're not going to, that isn't going to influence that decision they've already made.
100%. Yeah, there's nothing you're going to say by inquiring, that's going to trigger them to go, you know what, I am. I mean, you should be careful with your words. I mean, if you sit there and you're talking to somebody who's struggling, you shouldn't say anything of like, you could have it worse. Like there shouldn't be, because I will tell somebody all the time, and I've dealt with this with a lot of people, and we talked offline about it. You can't minimize anybody's struggle. It's their struggle. What may affect you may not affect somebody else the same way. And it's perspective.
Yes.
So I got into CISM, critical incident stress management, which is debriefings after a traumatic event, car crash, house fire. They bring it all together, and it's almost like an after actions report with the military. What you do is you get everybody's perspective. And when you actually get to tell your perspective on something, one, it's unloading that stress from you, because you have de-stress and debrief, right? So a lot of people don't understand, like, they'll, especially for example, when I went to that murder suicide of the 16-year-old, I thought I was the only one hurting, like because of what I saw, and I found it. Like it came in as a 911 hang up. And then when I opened the bedroom door and I found what I found.
Yeah.
When to hear other people's perspective of things that I didn't see, at one point I got mad because one guy froze and I was like, get out of the room. What are you doing? And I didn't put into perspective of the fact that he had the same age daughter and his daughter was friends with her. And until I had that debrief and got the perspective of that, I was like, wow. Because here I'm thinking at first, who's this guy to be upset? Like, I'm the one who found them.
Right.
And I didn't understand to not minimize what he was going through, because it was a different perspective and it affected him differently. And that's what good thing about CISM is you get to see everybody's perspective. And you also get to hear another point of view where people go, oh, I didn't even see that. I had tunnel vision or whatever. So that's what got me into CISM, after putting that into perspective, thinking, okay, other people need to know what other people are going through, because it's shared trauma at this point. You can process it a little different. And when you're walking through the hallway and you see them, you're like, all right, that guy, he went through some shit. Ooh, sugar. Through the same thing, so, and it's good for healing. It's good for, reducing animosity, in like interdepartment turmoils or so that's really what got me into that. And it's just a means of helping people process trauma, because I think of a lot of the time is we don't know how to process trauma. We think, you know what, I'm going to put it down deep. I may go to the bottle, I might go to the gym, but you're going to eventually have to deal with a lot of it, because eventually, like a backpack, the more weight you put in that backpack, every trauma is a pebble. Eventually, you're going to have a full backpack of trauma that you've never taken care of.
That's true.
And that's what the conversations that, we try to have with people. Let's unload some of that. It's not, you don't have to unload it all at once, but let's start to reduce some of that weight on your, before it breaks you.
That's really good advice, because you're right. People that just store it away, keep storing, eventually it's going to boil over. You can't keep putting things in there without taking something out.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does Hidden Battles Foundation actually, like, who is it for? What does it do? How does somebody partner with you, or how do they get engaged with it, or ask for services from your foundation?
So we are 100% volunteer nonprofit. We serve Southern New Hampshire up to the Lakes region, and we also serve Massachusetts in the Merrimack Valley area. We do about 100 events a year, and it's activity driven. We call it activity driven therapy. We're not therapeutic, but it's therapy, because being around other people is proven to be a therapeutic source of reducing stress. So we're like-minded individuals. We do everything from kayak trips to couples cooking classes. We do art therapy, equine therapy, fly fishing, yoga, meditation. We do so many different things because not every shoe fits every foot. And what we want to do is we want to use those activities to draw you into our community where you'll actually meet new people and you can start to build a support system and make friends and have something to look forward to. We've got a group of like a subculture of Marines that come to only certain events because they know that these other Marines that they met are going to be there. We have people that come to our events from all over New England. We actually did a equine retreat, and we had a Navy veteran from Maine come in, and we had a Navy veteran from the Cape come in, and they had never met each other. And we did a sunrise hike. And while we're all talking, one sailor said to the other sailor, like, "Oh, where were you on? What vessel were you on, or what'd you do?" And they were like, "Oh, I'm a bosun's mate." "What about you?" "Oh, yeah, I was communications." "Oh, what vessel?" And they're like, "Oh, the Boxer." Like, "I was on the Boxer." "When were you on the Boxer?" And it turns out they were on the Boxer at the same time.
Oh, wow.
But they had never met. And I was like, this is great. So the purpose of us, and not by design, it was me to have activities for people to get out and try to find a new outlet for their trauma. And I didn't realize that organically we were coming into a community of, like I said, like-minded people, to where now we have the Hidden Battles webpage and the Hidden Battles Facebook page, but we have a group called the Hidden Battles Group, where it's designed for people to share events that are veteran and first responder friendly. And you asked who we serve. So we serve dispatchers, we serve police, fire, EMS, paramedics, and trauma medical nurses. So basically 911 to the ER. We also serve veterans, National Guard, Reserve, and current military. So if you ever raised your hand and swore an oath, then we take care of you. We don't care about your disability, your discharge status. I don't care if you have a dishonorable discharge. We might ask why, because certain reasons, but when I was in the stuff that I did, I would absolutely probably be in jail for now in the military, because it is totally different now. Being in the military in the 90s compared to being in the militaries in the 2000s, totally different.
Yeah, it's a different army.
But that's who we serve. And we have programs that are designed for, like I said, the spouses or even a support person. We have a police officer who brings his teenage son to some of the cooking classes because it's a bonding moment for them. And that's what we want to do. We want to get them out of the element of normalcy, and we want to create maybe a buzz or something that's going to pique their interest in something, whether it's fly fishing. Fly fishing is very therapeutic, but it's something that somebody might try. But if you don't like fly fishing, you have no desire to do fly fishing, you might go, "Oh, wait, they have a bouquet making class. I'm going to try that." So we have so many different things because we want people to try new things. We want them to, pique an interest that'll actually, like I said, will get them out of that mindset of being hypervigilant. You can't really concentrate on something new if you're hypervigilant. So you swap the two for a little while.
So do your events cost, and who puts them on, and how does somebody plug in? Do they just go to the website and just ask to join, or what's the process?
Yeah, so everything we do is free. Some events are more expensive than others, so we might ask you for a deposit, and it's only a $10 deposit. And the reason is because mentally, if you have any skin in the game, you're more likely not to bail on it than you would if you don't have anything. So we do stuff with some minor league baseball teams up here in the Northeast. So we'll ask for like a $5 deposit on a ticket that'll get you, your free meal, your ticket, and it's not much. But most of our programs are $0. All the money that we get, like I said, we're 100% volunteer. I write grants. We have a lot of sponsors, corporate sponsors, banks, individual donations. You can donate right on our website. But if you want to get involved or you want to join any of our things, you go to our Facebook page or our webpage, hiddenbattlesfoundation.org, or our Facebook page, which is Hidden Battles. You can go there and you can see it all listed, the events. And all you have to do is when on it, it'll say, here's a link to sign up. And you just sign up. And we just ask a courtesy. If you can't make it, let us know so we can backfill that spot.
Right. And so is it hiddenbattlesfoundation.org? Is that what you said?
Yes, it
I'm
is.
going to put that in the chat
Okay.
so everybody can take advantage of the programs if they're in the area, because you said it's based on a region that you're able to help those
Yes.
veterans or first
Yeah.
responders.
And I mean, we have people, so we do an event called the 22 for the 22, and it's a 22K ruck, and we do it at Newfound Lake in New Hampshire. And what we do is we put it out, and that event is a fundraiser for us. It funds a couple of our other events, and it's $25 to go. And we've had people from all the way from North Carolina come up to that event.
Wow.
So we don't turn anybody away. Even, and I will tell you, for a lot of our stuff, we have people who want to be involved, but they're not first responders. So what we do is we tell them to volunteer for setup, and then hang out for the event. We have a lot of people that do our culinary program. So what they do is they volunteer, they help with all the prep work and everything else. And then if we don't have people show up, well, they jump into the spot. So no money's being wasted there. So
Awesome.
there is, like I said, I don't turn anybody away. And I find a reason for to eliminate the no's. Like I can't do it because it costs money. That's why our stuff is free. And I know as a first responder, if you want to do anything with your family, that means you have to work overtime or a detail. And it's kind of counterintuitive, because now you're going, I want to do something with my family, but I have to take time away from my family to afford to do something with my family. So that's why we don't have anything cost anything. We have people that don't have licenses, or they have brain tumors and they can't drive because of seizures. So we actually work with another nonprofit that'll pick them up and bring them to our events. So that's, we eliminate every no. I can't do it. No, why? Because I can't afford it. Well, that's not, we can pay for it. I don't have it. I don't have the gas money. I'll give you a gas card. Like, we make sure that you're not going to say no. Like, if you want to come, literally don't check the box and say, I asked. Like, no, you can come. We'll find a way.
That's awesome. Removing all barriers and obstacles is amazing, because, and people sometimes want those barriers in place so they can say no. Like,
Yes.
no, I'm sorry, I just don't have the money for that. I'm not able to, or like you said, I can't drive. Well, okay, we'll pick you up. Like, if you remove those barriers, they're kind of forced to engage, because I think they really want to, but they don't want to all at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they think they might get better, and maybe they don't want to. They're like, oh, I'll be forced to talk to people and maybe,
Yep.
have a connection with somebody, and I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I call them box checkers. They'll call me up. So I have people call me up and they're just not ready to get help.
right.
And they'll, they're having marital problems, and the spouse is like, you need to get help. You need to go to AA. You need to get in a peer group. You need to do something. So what they'll do is they'll call me up and they'll say, I need to get help. And I'm like, fantastic. I have gone to the point where I was that guy. As soon as I heard no, I checked the box and said, nobody's doing anything for me. And I did it.
Right.
And like I said, I've learned from my mistakes, and I try to listen. My mom told me I was unique and there was nobody else like me, and she lied, because there are so many people like me out there, looking for that no, because I wasn't ready. There are people out there who say, oh yeah, listen, we have guys that come to our peer support group because their wives or their husbands tell them, go to peer support. And they sit in the parking lot and they watch YouTube. They're checking the box. They're not ready. And I'm not going to force them to be ready, because it's going to be a bad experience for them. And then they're going to be like, nope, I did it. I wasn't ready for it. They're just not ready. Or that person that calls me and tells me they need to go to a sober home. And then I call some of the organizations that we work with that are, substance abuse or drug abuse. So we'll call them up and I'll say, yep, you got to leave Monday. Oh, as much as I would love to, I can't, because I'm cleaning my garage out this weekend, and Tuesday's trash day, and I got to put everything out on the curb. You're not ready. If you're coming up with those, you're not ready. You're checking the box because somebody told you need to get help. Look, I called, check the box. And you can't force it on them, because it's like, if they're not ready, it's not going to work for them. They have to be invested in their mental health, and they have to be invested in their recovery. And if they're not fully ready for it, then they're wasting people's times.
That's true. I mean, you can spend thousands of dollars trying to help somebody get better, and until they want to get better, they're not going to get better. It's going to be wasted effort and wasted money, because Until somebody's really saying to themselves, yeah, I need to change, I need to do something different, nothing's going to be different.
And there's nothing wrong with
It's an
that.
old
I mean,
pattern.
it's okay to say, I'm not ready for that help, but
Right.
make small changes. If you're not ready for that big, massive change, then you should be making small changes. You know, mental health is like a car in a sense. You have to do oil changes, you have to do maintenance on it, right? You have to rotate the tires, right? Which is you changing your mindset. Like we had said earlier, like that car is running and it's always idling. It shut the car off at times. But your body and mind are the same way. People go to the gym and they work out their body because I need to be physically fit. But you need to be mentally fit too. So you need to do things that are going to make you mentally fit and better. And maybe you're not, in the point where you're like, I need, my brain's gonna be overhauled. No, maybe it's like maybe you need to go and talk to somebody, walk and have a coffee with a friend. Just talk. It doesn't have to be about the traumatic stuff that you're going through, but it could be about some of the stuff you're going through. Is work stressful to you? Is your finances stressful to you? Your relationship stressful? Did you get a new dog who's like you thought was going to help you with your stress and it's not? The way that you're going to do this is unpack slowly. You don't take a 10-mile walk in the woods and come out in a mile. Like it's a process. And
Right.
that's what people need to understand.
I agree with that. And we also talked about earlier too that, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need somebody to talk to. It's okay to need some type of therapy, whatever that looks like or whatever that is. If that's fly fishing or if that's actually going into somebody's office and sitting down and talking with them for an hour or two or whatever the case may be. But, there shouldn't be any reason why you can't get help if you want help.
Yeah.
It's available on all kinds of different levels. If you're at work and there's an EAP program, I bet you, or if you're a first
Absolutely.
responder, there's probably some kind of first responder health that's available to you. Or if you're a veteran, their VA is available to you. Or there's all kinds of other organizations such as yours that are available to talk to people and to help people and to really coach and guide them to other services that might, benefit them. So, there's the stigma is gone with people, that want or need help or just want to see if they can work through some issues they've got going on. Maybe they, don't really have a problem per se, but they really just need some help kind of resolving some issues in their own mind. So there's help available and there's no reason why you can't say,
Yeah.
hey, I just need to chat with somebody for a few minutes, because the stigma of needing help or asking for help isn't out there anymore like it used to be.
So let's put it this way. This is how weird we are as a culture, as first responders and veterans. We have no problem going in and telling everybody that we're going to have a colonoscopy, right? We have, which is the most embarrassing thing on the planet. But yet we have a problem going in and saying, yeah, you know what? I'm talking to a therapist. Like, what is wrong with that?
Right.
Like it confuses me. And like I was on a regional response team. We worked with SWAT teams, and we did a whole bunch of things. I said I was a combat engineer in the Army. I have a problem with people saying, no, I'm too tough, or it doesn't bother me. Listen, I have friends that are Navy SEALs. I have friends that were Special Forces guys. I have friends that are SWAT operators. I know some bad mamma jammers on this planet. Do you know that Navy SEALs, any Special Forces Tier 1 operator in their unit is embedded with therapists, right? To go back to the movie, and I don't even know when it came out, I'd have to look it up, Lethal Weapon, right? LAPD had clinicians in place back in the 80s. In the movie Lethal Weapon, right? Mel Gibson's character was involved in a shooting. He had to go and talk to the clinician in their department, right?
Yeah.
It's been in place for a long time, but people are afraid to say, oh, you know what, I'm not doing well, because they're afraid of how they're going to look.
Right.
Would you rather be looked at as somebody going to seek help when things aren't so bad, to the point when you're getting written up, getting suspended, you're losing your wife, your kids, you're sleeping on a couch? Are we going to wait until the engine blows up, or are we going to get an oil change?
Right.
And that's what I tell people. As bad as you think you are, Special Forces guys are talking to clinicians, right? They're doing debriefings after missions. You're not that hard that you're above this. It's okay to talk to somebody. And you should, if you're that hard, you should be setting the example for the new guys to say, look, I talked to somebody.
Right.
And it's that simple. And the whole stigma of unfit for duty, if it gets to the point where you're being mandated by your chief, you should take it because he's trying to save your career, right?
True.
The only reason you're going to lose your job is if you lie or you steal, right? You can get an OUI and keep your job. People make mistakes. But what you have to understand is you have to actually, cut it off. You got to know the signs and symptoms. If you're constantly on edge, if you're irritable for no reason whatsoever, if your uniforms look like crap, and this is for people who you work with too. If you have no problem, complimenting somebody, if they went on a date, or you can have no problem going and talking about the appearance of a woman at a date, and you have no problem asking about when you going on that, on that date with that hot dude, a hot guy, whatever, hot chick. If you have no problem with that, you should have no problem going, buddy, your uniforms look like crap. What's going on with you?
Yeah.
You're on edge. You're running late. You're using a lot of sick time. You're not taking overtime. Like if your lifestyle is changing, do you take these as signs that something is not right with you? If you're losing interest in things, like, oh, I used to love fishing, but I don't want to do it anymore. That could be a precursor to you having some post-traumatic stress or mental health issues. Don't let it get to the point now you're making case law or now you're violating policy and procedure. Nobody wants to work with you. Like, these are the things that you should be doing before it gets too bad.
You're right. And it's going to a therapist or something like that is just going to any other doctor. If I have a cold, I'm going to go see a doctor and try to get better, or I have something else going on, I'm going to see a doctor. So if I have something going on mentally, because I feel like I've got too much stress, or I feel like I'm dealing with a lot that I can't handle on my own, then I'm just going to a doctor, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what they're there for, and that's what they should be utilized if you're needing any kind of assistance that way. It shouldn't be any different.
And it's funny because I know some guys that are union heavy equipment operators, rough, tough, tattoos, Harley Davidsons. These guys go and get pedicures. Do you know why? It's self-care. They feel better after they do with it. So you need to do something like that. And you shouldn't be ashamed of going in and going to see a therapist, or talking to somebody. And it's funny because I'll hear people because we have up here in the Northeast, and I think you guys might have them too. We have what called vet centers, and they're not the VA, they're mental health centers. And I've had veterans say to me, but what if somebody I know sees me there? I relate it as this. I relate it to running into somebody in an adult film store or in an adult gentleman's club. They're there too.
Right.
Like if you're there, they're there. Like, don't be embarrassed. Like, what do you think? He just walked in off the street like, oh, geez, what's going on in this place? Like, you're both in the same spot. There for the same reason. Don't be embarrassed thinking like, oh, what if somebody sees me there? Good for you.
Right.
You should say, look, I had the courage and I had the strength to do what I need to do to be a better person or to be better for my family. Or, and if you want to be selfish about it, be the better you for going there. You're the reason. Because when you're better, it's that proverbial pedal in the pond. That ripple is going to affect everybody that you're in contact with. Not only your immediate family, it's going to affect everybody that you're working with. And for supervisors and leaders, you're getting a better product out on the road. Public safety is a product. We'll just put it that way. Good firemen, good EMTs, good paramedics, good nurses, good police officers. It's a product that you're selling your community. And the better they are, the better it is for the people that they serve. So think about it that way. Be selfish. Take care of yourself. Take some time for you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's for sure. No. So you have a radio show. So tell us about that.
I do. So we have Hidden Battles Radio. We're also live. We're live on Monday nights up here in New Hampshire. And what we do is we bring on other nonprofits because like I said before, if I found no, I would go see nobody's doing anything for me. And when people ask me, what do you think the biggest problem with veterans is? I tell them it's education. And it's not like institutional education. It's not going to college. It's education on who's doing what for who.
Right.
And what we do is we have so many nonprofits out there and so many resources out there that just strictly nobody's heard of, or they may be new, who are doing great things. So my radio show, we bring them on and we have a casual conversation, just like we are here. And we talk about, why they serve the community, what brought them to doing it, very similar to what we're doing. And then we talk about stuff. And what we do is we bring on Veterans Legal Aid. We bring on Vouchers for Veterans, which is an organization that gives money to veterans so they can buy food at the farmers market. We bring on Operation Delta Dog, who's one of our partners. I have a service dog through them. So we bring them on so that our listeners are educated to go, oh, they are doing that. Because you can't say nobody's doing it for you. And I'm taking that away. Like I said, we're taking away those no boxes, So we bring in all these different other organizations and we talk to them and we say, what are you doing and why and what can you do and how can we help? Because as Hidden Battles, like I do my part and I'm only a spoke in the wheel, but my mission is not Hidden Battles. My mission is to improve the life of our local heroes. I want to have better brothers and sisters in uniform and past and present. And I want to help I want to help them still. So it's not about Hidden Battles. It's about getting the resources out there so that people know they exist. And that's what our radio show is. We have a lot of humor involved in it. There's a lot of gallows humor. We quote movies. We pick on each other. And it's 2 hours of comedy with a lot of information thrown in there.
So you're on linear radio?
Yes.
What time and what channel?
So we are we're on 7 p.m. East Coast to 9 p.m. East Coast. We're on a radio station called WSMN, but you can stream live with WSMN.live, or you can go to our Facebook page because we stream live on the Hidden Battles Facebook page also. I like the Facebook page because we can interact with everybody. People can, chime in. We do a lot of giveaways. We give away books, signed books from people who appear on the show. We give away merchandise, Hidden Battles merchandise and stuff, because we'll do, we want to keep them engaged. So what we'll do is we'll say, hey, in the first hour, I hinted about this. And whoever can come up with that answer, I'll give a t-shirt to. And we cut it off at a certain time. But we want to keep people engaged. And what we do is we get a lot of people who sit in their cruisers or at the fire station or in the, their ambulances in there streaming on their phone, or if they're in the Nashua, New Hampshire area, they can actually listen live right then and there. So it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it because it's an outlet for me. And like I said, I like to have conversations and find out who's doing what for who, because there's other organizations out there that have never even heard of Hidden Battles. I mean, we've been around for 9 years, and I was just at a national night out, and people are like, who are you? So
right, you think you get the word out, and then you find out you don't have everybody engaged yet.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
What's the radio channel? You said it's WSMN, and what are the
.live?
Yeah. .live. Okay. And what's the actual dial?
It's 90. So it's 1590 AM and 95.3 FM.
And 95 FM.
Yep, 95.3 FM.
Okay, I'm putting this in the chat just in case somebody wants to tune in. And
if you miss it, we're on every streaming platform as Hidden Battles Radio Live. You can go to Apple, Google Play. You can go to iTunes, Spotify. We're on all the platforms, so you can hear old ones. I mean, we've had some pretty decent people on. We've had everything from, authors to musicians. We've had Navy SEALs on. I have one of our shows. You should check it out. It's one of my favorite. It's called When Harry Met Mickey. It's about a Navy SEAL who lost both his legs and he met boxing legend Mickey Ward. We set that up, so that's a good one. But it's a whole bunch of different cast of characters that have come on. But it's very educational and entertaining at the same time.
That sounds amazing. So is there any last words or messages you want to put out to the audience about anything? We have about a minute left.
I think my mission, my message to everybody is to, you got to look out for you. You got to take care of number one before you can take care of number two. And I really express that it is not weak to get help. And if you are a loved one or a friend of a first responder or veteran, you got to look for them too, because sometimes it's easier looking out and you don't see as much, but looking in, you're going to see a lot more. And don't be afraid to offer help. Don't be afraid to be there for them. That would probably be my best piece of advice for anybody. Just, you got to kind of take care of each other.
I think that's great advice, because you have to take care of yourself, because the flight attendant always says put the mask on yourself and then put it on your friends or your children or whoever you're sitting beside if they're not able to. So you can't take care of anybody else till you take care of yourself first. So good
Agreed.
advice. Well, Scott, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to having you on again.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. And likewise, let's have you on my show.
Oh, awesome. Sounds good.
All right.
Well, this is
All right, we'll talk.
Signing off. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be good and safe.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.